Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this morning's Community Conversation Coffee. My name is Barb Mittman, and I serve on City Council representing Ward 1, which is the Northeast quadrant of Nevada, and I also serve as Mayor Pro Tem. This is another in our series of virtual Saturday morning conversations that address some topics of interest to the community. As always, we invite you to post questions and comments as well as other topics for future community coffees on Saturday. Today, we're here to talk about human trafficking, and the topic came to our attention during a recent YSS Circle of Champions meeting. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of Eastern Story County school and community leaders. January 2021 is National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. It is a key time to raise awareness and educate ourselves about human trafficking, to learn about the signs of modern slavery and trafficking, and actually to take some action. There's a little blurb in the national news the other day about a person in another state, wait staff, that noticed that somebody was in trouble and wrote a note and got help. So today we're joined by Ruth Buckles. Ruth is the Teens Against Human Trafficking statewide coordinator for Youth and Shelter Services in Ames. Also on our panel this morning is Bambi Schrader. She's the YSS collaboration manager and the convener of the Circle of Champions in Eastern Story County. So before we move into the topic of human trafficking, I want to ask Bambi to take just a few minutes to talk about the YSS Circle of Champions in Eastern Story County.
Sure, thank you, Barb. The Circle of Champions was formed to look at the needs of the communities and the school systems of Nevada, Colonesco, and Collins-Maxwell. And so we put together a list of people that we felt would be key leaders in those communities and in the schools. And to come together, we come together once a quarter and look at what are some of the needs that YSS programming or our donations specialists at YSS or other programs at YSS could fill those needs. So for example, the most recent Circle of Champions we had, all three school systems expressed the need for water bottles. The drinking fountains, because of COVID at all three schools, are shut down. So kids are supposed to bring their own water bottles, and sometimes, like kids do, they forget. And so a need was put out. So we have reached out to, YSS has reached out to vendors in the Des Moines service area and other locations, as well as our own programming. And we've secured almost 100 water bottles now, over 100 water bottles, and those are being distributed to the school system. So it can be something as easy as that, or it can be something like human trafficking. And unfortunately, all three of our school systems, I would imagine, are experiencing it, have experienced it, will continue to experience it. So we want to bring that awareness to people, and by doing things like this or in person. So we would love to have anyone who's listening. If you would like to be part of the Circle of Champions, you just need to get a hold of me at YSS, and we'd love to add you to our committee and to get, again, to get more resources for the communities that are involved in the Circle of Champions.
Thanks for that quick overview, Bambi.
Sure.
If you are interested in knowing more, please contact Bambi. We'll be posting your contact information on the Facebook page in the comment section. So now, I would like to welcome Ruth Buckles. Please introduce yourself with more than just that long title. Share your screen and help us know more about human trafficking in the state of Iowa. You're muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Ruth.
All right. I have a cuckoo clock in the background that chimes once in a while, and I try and stay on mute as much as I can. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to flip through the screen. I wrote this for community conversations just like this, so thank you for having me. Basically, I want to help people gain awareness about what human trafficking looks like that is not Hollywood. So most of us know human trafficking from the Hollywood perspective, big cities, catwalks, et cetera, et cetera. That's not how it looks like in our rural communities. and it is in every rural community all over Iowa. I started doing human trafficking work in 2008, and really it took off in 2009 through the foster care work that I was doing, because many times when youth under the age of 18 are identified as victims and or becoming survivors of trafficking, they are placed in our foster care system for that added support. And I had the privilege of getting to not only foster some of those, but adopt 8 into my family. So anyhow, I want people to understand the issue or see it for what it is. So I've written a note so you can see this as we go through. It's only 12 slides as well as a help slide. But there are some key points that I've put on the slides for you to understand. Like, this is not a hidden industry. This is a business just like any other business that you would have. Many times, I mean, the business can be as small as a family selling their own children, or as large as a, highly diversified organization in any kind of business that would be called the storefront. So it might be that they sell insurance, but they also sell people, or they sell, and it can be anything in the sex industry, from pornography clear through to, selling eggs, et cetera, into the medical fields. All of these things, when you take them out of the realm of a person's body without paying that person for that service, falls into slavery or trafficking. And so people will say, well, how does that get set up? So I want you to understand that when you see this issue, it's everywhere and it's high dollar. So when you think about $32,000 a week as the average income, you're not thinking about, oh, these are poor people that do this, just to pay their bills. Does that happen? You bet it happens. But is it all the time? Absolutely not. Traffickers are people who are motivated by money. That is their primary motivation. And they do that. They manipulate people using rewards, power, control, cruelty, sometimes pain, sometimes pleasure. It all depends on how that person's motivated. And so they learn to control. So when people say, oh, this is just teenagers, you are wrong, because all it takes is a vulnerability and then somebody to exploit that vulnerability. So the youngest survivor I have worked with was 3 months old when she came out of being trafficked. And the oldest survivor I have gotten to work with was 72. However, I've been told of somebody who was in their 80s and being sold. So I just want you to know, this is a sexual deviance thing. This has nothing to do with the sex act itself, though that could be part of the transactions. It has to do with power and control, fear, having power over people, and of course, making money. So when you stop and you think about, how could I manipulate somebody so that I can make money off of them? That's how a trafficker thinks. So diversification in a business, they might buy a business, they might be a business owner, they might be a CEO or a very, very top of a company, and they might have levels and levels and levels and levels of people they traffic, people that get trafficked by the middle management, people that get trafficked by the management above them, et cetera, et cetera. I have yet to go into any business that did not have trafficking happening in it. And we've been in multiple schools where trafficking is part of what some of the youth in the schools experience as normal family. So when you think about a family business, if mom or dad are traveling salespeople, et cetera, maybe what they're selling isn't just a product. It might be a human product as well. Okay. When you think about this as an industry, it would not work, basic economics, without the buyers. So you need to see the buyers as who they are. They're both male and female. They are of every income bracket. This doesn't take billions of dollars, though it makes billions of dollars. You can start very simply with manipulating one person. And when you have success at that, you can manipulate or build your program up into fleets of cars, fleets of people that you are running in Iowa, all over the country, wherever. One of the biggest fallacies that people get stuck on, because Hollywood does this wrong, is Hollywood presents that these people are missing from the communities. That is an error. They are not. They're manipulated within their communities. So they might go to church every Sunday, they might be in youth group, they might go to their jobs every day, they might be a straight A student, or they might be all of the opposite. It wouldn't really matter. But they're not missing, they're not taken, they're not stolen. Can that happen? Yes. Does it happen always? No. It's actually the exception to the rule, especially in states like Iowa, because when somebody disappears in Iowa, everybody comes out searching. I mean, we call in everybody. We don't like our people to go missing. So when you stop and you think about how many people then that would be spotlighted on a missing person, traffickers don't want that kind of spotlight. They don't want that kind of attention. So they know the best way to do this is just to find something that they can blackmail somebody else to do, and then that person will show up for the transactions. And they threaten that person, they invade that person's life and privacy, typically taking control of their bank accounts, their social security numbers, their important contact information, and they hold that person emotionally hostage and say things like, wow, your family has a big name in this community. I'm going to embarrass your family, your parents, your grandparents if you don't do this. I'm going to tell people you did that if you don't do this for me. And that's how they get people kind of tricked into this industry. Once tricked in, they photograph you, they actually get the information on, and then they hold you hostage to that information that you would like people never to know. Okay. It is about controls, and people will say, how do they control people doing this? Very, very simply. If you have a GPS tracking device in your car, in your phone, on your person, you too can be tracked and monitored, manipulated, sent places. And when I talk about sent places, like microchipping the victim's body. And I put a little 5 by that because the last victim that we demicrochipped had 5 microchips in that person's body. And those gave us GPS tracking so that their pimp would know where they were at all the time. This is very simple technology. You can buy microchipping over the internet. But you think about those little apps on your phone that are supposed to create safety for families. So I, as a parent, could track my children. They could turn on their app and I could know exactly where they're at. Well, if a parent can do it, a pimp can do it. It's very simple stuff. And so the very things that we as parents put together to keep us and our children and our families safe can be used against us as well. Videotaping, photographing, all of that kind of stuff is just normal parts of this industry. So when you see the vulnerability, these are the different parts that can be held can expose vulnerabilities. And so age, the younger the person is, the lower their brain development is, the easier they are to coerce into something. So I worked with some little girls whose parents were professionals, maybe in the medical field, maybe in the teaching field, and they were coerced because they were, your mommy really likes to do her job, she's very good at her job, or your daddy is so good, saves lives, etc. And if you want them to keep doing their jobs, you'll do this for me. And that coerced the children into being trafficked behind the backs of their parents who thought their parents were perfectly safe. So again, when you think about brain development, those kids weren't able to say, wait a second, my parents would not approve of this. That comes with that development piece that traffickers want to make sure they don't have. Sexual identity, anybody who identifies, I want people to be themselves, whoever you are designed to be. However, in the trafficking industry, they're worth double the money, triple the money, quadruple the money. And so this population is frequently targeted. And so that's because this is about deviance. So it's about the experience. It's about buying somebody and having different kinds of encounters. And so it's the illusion, it's the fantasy, it's the seduction, it's all of that that plays into it. Of course, mental health, when you think about a business diversification, if you have somebody that has mental health issues and they have medications, they would get a new prescription every 30 days, give or take. And the trafficker could sell the person, the trafficker could sell the prescription, the trafficker could make the person perform for the prescriptions. And not just in mental health, with any kind of physical need that comes with a medication. So for me, I have to have medications to live with my cancer. So, you know, that would be an easy manipulation. You know, Ruth, you have to do these to get this. That kind of thinking, that falls into the trafficking realm. Poverty, homelessness, anything that leaves you money, food insecurity that might make you dependent on somebody else. We have food insecurity in Story County. We have poverty. We have people that cannot pay their heat or their rent. And so those are easy ways to say, well, I'll pay this, but you have to do this in return. And so those, again, they make people vulnerable. Any kind of addiction to any kind of substance. And I worry about the fact that I say addictions. Please understand that some people have addictions and some people are administered drugs to manipulate them. So not everybody is an addict by choice. And that's something that we as parents need to understand, that, you know, it might not be that our child chose to use drugs, or our adult children or whatever. They might have somebody manipulating them to get them into that environment. Excuse me. We need to see the targets. This is a buyer's market. This is about what the buyer chooses to buy. So what's the in thing? What's the new trendy word? What's the new experience? So I put this on here to understand about that experience, because there was a book that came out a few years ago, 50 Shades of Grey. Okay. And somewhere in that book, and I have never read it, it gave the illusion that people should do these things or have these experiences to have a full life, etc. And out of the sex industry where I'm working, we started hearing victims say, oh my gosh, I'm being bought now to be a sex therapist for this couple that wants help spicing up their life. Or I'm being purchased now to spice it up to be a three-way, or to do this, or to be the pool boy, or whatever is in these books or these fantasies. So just remember, it's wherever that buyer's mind goes. If this is what you have at home to go home to, this isn't what you go out and buy. You buy the experience. You buy the illusions or whatever it is that you're after. And I'm going to flippily, whatever that is. I'm going to go over to the victims, and to see these victims as people. You need to understand people. You need to know their routine. These are your husbands, your daughters, your wives, their mothers. Grandparents can be manipulated. You find out their routine. They're not missing out of their life. They're manipulated from their life. So if a trafficker knows that person's normal routine, they sell them in the times that they're off, you know? So at night is very common. First thing in the morning, when you're headed to the gym might not be the place that has a treadmill. It might be something else that somebody's going to. And we had a couple kids that were going to the schools early in the morning to do the weight room that never made it to a weight room because they were being trafficked, and they were told to tell their parents we're going to the weight room. So again, any piece of this can be manipulated. I'm running to the store to get groceries, but nobody comes home with groceries. Or I'm going to this convenience store or that convenience store, and it might be a quick transaction and then brought back home again. It's when the patterns of that person's life are known, they stay in their pattern, that's what keeps it hidden, and then they do these other kind of odd things that you're like, why do you run to Walmart 15 times a week? You know, and stop and think about it. Why do they? They don't. So what's really going on in their world? Okay, so all ages. People will talk to me a lot about self-harming. If you're told you cannot tell people about what's going on to you, self-harm is very, very, I mean, you're internalizing all of this without an avenue to vent anything. So to me, when I see things like self-harm or intentionally being harmed, I think, who's harming? Who's threatening? Who's involved? Or is this being done to you and you're being told to call it self-harm? And you got to stop and you got to think about that, because, you know, I've got a lot of parents of teenage girls that'll say, oh, they're into self-harm. And I look and I go, really? Are they? Are they? Or is somebody harming them and telling them to tell you, because you, the parent, noticed, tell you this is what it is? And those are conversations between parents and kids, or therapists, or community people, or the counselors in your schools. Guys, you've got excellent schools in Story County. We are so blessed. There isn't a teacher in those buildings that you couldn't send your kid to say, I need help. And those teachers would then learn how to get that help. And we're right here offering all of that information to them if they don't know it already. But we are very, very blessed with them believing our kids. The alcohol and the drug use, lying. I don't know how many times I have parents say to me, I hate it when my kids lie to me. Okay, if the pimp is giving the stories, please understand they're all lies. Do you see what I mean? There's an element of truth in here, and there's this huge, huge web of lies over here. The reason is because if this was ever going to go to a prosecution, if police ever got involved, the job of a police officer is to verify. You cannot verify lies. So if you've got somebody in front of you saying, my pimp's name is Sam, that's who it is, my pimp's name is Sam, and the officer does research and finds out this person's name is John, now you can't verify. Do you see what I'm saying? And so when you think about it, the whole industry is based on lies so that it can stay operational, even in the pressure of a police investigation or community people, parents looking at it, whatever, because the stories don't add up. Now, what I try and warn parents is to say, if you start hearing things and 2 and 2 and 2 don't get to 6, start looking closer. Start monitoring your kids closer. You are your child's best advocate, best friend, best guidance, best. And start looking. Anytime stories don't add up, get there. But lying is part of the industry. So is it also child development? Does it also happen in normal kids? You bet it does, as they test their limits. But when it is, I call it outrageous lying, when they can't leave their phone without it being right. I mean, that phone has to be on their body no matter where it's at. They can't turn it over. If there's a whole bunch of code names or code words or things like that in a phone, and you say, who are these people? Can I look them up someplace? And you can't, and they're not known. Those are all things that I think people need to understand are red flags. Okay? Seeing the game. They'll act out, they'll be defiant. They might have been threatened that if you get aware of what's going on, the person being bought and sold, the person that's enslaved, is the one that's going to get hurt, because the pimp has access to that person and will say, you must have done something to make that person alert. You're the one that's going to get punished. So please understand, they are screaming for help, and they're screaming for help that's kind of in secret, so that the people that are being threatened, whatever's coercing them to do this, stays safe. Make sense? Okay, so I want you to say, if you come across this, talk to some experts, get some questions to ask, go on the websites that I'm going to share in just a little bit, and start reading the information, looking for the patterns. Find safety first. Find safety first for everybody involved before you start before you start saying, I'm going to go take this on. Because, guys, this is an industry that's operated for thousands of years. This isn't new. This is manipulation. This is slavery. Okay? Force, fraud, and coercion, that's the name of the game. All you have to do is get that person to a party, to an event, to anything that you can set up. I have had trafficking rings that set up those traveling suppers or book clubs or gourmet meals or whatever as a way to invite people in just so they could learn vulnerabilities and then manipulate those people later. This is all part of the bait and switch kind of game. So I just want you to understand that, you have those risk takers. And I always say, people know who the risk takers are. They're in the long lines waiting to get on the roller coaster. Those are people who like risks. They're like, woohoo, here we go. That's one of the hallmarks of this industry. Somebody that likes adventure, risk, fun, because you paint this out to be an industry of, yes, I'm going to help you meet all of your dreams, needs. You want to go here, you want to go there, I'm with you. I'm your person. And then that's the bait. And then it's the switch. And so I just want people to see that as that's a game for pimps to play. When you're in the life, these are some of the things you need to know about being in the life. You might have to travel. You might say things like, I have some young ladies that are being trafficked on weekends and they tell their parents things like, oh, I'm going to Colorado for this, or I've got an interview in Omaha. I've got to run over to Chicago for this or for that. Do you see what I mean? So it's travel, but when you ask that person, what did you get to see in Chicago? What did you see in Omaha? When you went to Colorado, what did you get to see there? And they're like, because they really didn't get to see anything, but maybe the inside of somebody's house or the inside of somebody's hotel room do you see what I'm saying? But they're promised all this fun and travel and excitement, but maybe they're just more like road trips. Can they go longer? You bet they can go longer. But again, somebody missing in Iowa, that's a red flag. So, traveling with friends, et cetera, I want to know what those people saw when they came back. Drugs, alcohol, resources like that, those are used to manipulate people to get them to do what you want them to do, because buyers do not want somebody that's drunk that they're paying a lot of money for. Buyers don't want somebody that's completely intoxicated or completely, impaired by a drug. They're paying big money for this experience. That's not the experience they want. So remember, those are tools in the life, the alcohol and the drugs. They're not what buyers want to pay for. Remember the gifts that go along with this. If you've got somebody in your life that's coming up with gift after gift after gift, start looking at where those gifts are coming from, and don't think that this is just girls. There are boys too. There are boys that are trafficked, young boys. The younger they are, same with the brain development, easy to manipulate. They don't know any different. And we've all heard those stories for years and years and years. And we need to understand they haven't gone away. So that's kind of the briefest synopsis I can give on trafficking, but I want you to see the numbers. And I know that this is being recorded. So again, these are critical helpline numbers. And if I were you and I was watching this, I'd get that phone out that's always in your pockets and I'd take a picture of this, because you never really know if you're going to be the one that sees immediate danger. You get to our officers. 911 gets you an officer. Call it. If you are seeing a situation and you can't really say it's trafficking, it's danger, it's not abduction, what's going on, and you just know that things don't add up, try and get make and models of cars, license plate numbers, photographs of people if you can, and you call the state and federal helpline, the 888-3737-888. That's the polarisproject.org. It's nationally funded. And I want you to know it's got some of the best resources you're ever going to find on the planet. But that's a helpline number, both for people on the outside like me to call in when I see things that don't look right, and for victims to call in and get help. And they will trigger the Iowa task. We don't have a task force, the Iowa officers that will come locally to that area. And of course, the bottom number is the hotline number. It's for domestic violence. In Iowa, we do not have trafficking hotline numbers. We have the federal one right above that, but we do have domestic violence hotline numbers, highly trained individuals that'll take those calls and help people navigate the system to get to safety. And of course, the last slide is me. If you need resources, if you want a real conversation about what trafficking is, if you want a training in your area, I will go anywhere in Story County. We're free. I'm free. We do this training all over Iowa. I focus on Iowa. I have interviewed over 200 survivors of trafficking. I am in this work every single day. And I have trainings that will get professionals ready. I have an officer on my staff that if it's officer to officer training, we've got that. But if the officers need to hear what it looks like in families so that can help identify them, then I go along because I can do the family. This is what it looks like in a family. I live this, I've raised this. This is now my world, my life, so to speak. So my contact information is on there and I'm a resource and I'm ready for questions if anybody's got them.
Ruth, I'm thinking about what individual parts of a community could do, and what you've outlined how things happen, what they look like, or what they can look like. So what about cities and ordinances? Are there things that we could do as a community to discourage the hide behind either industries? We were approached, a couple of our council members were approached before COVID, explaining to us about an ordinance that passed in Ames related to massage parlors.
Right.
And so we were approached about that, but since COVID, have not had a chance to do anything about that, and to go revisit that. But are there other ways, more general ways, so that we don't have to go industry by industry in order to make it more difficult?
And I'm aware of the massage ordinance, and that did go through Ames. Basically, there are massage, that are licensed business men and women that do that as a service. We're not trying to hinder them, and they're actually with us with this ordinance, because there are the fake ones that advertise on the internet that say, oh, we'll send this person in to you, smile, smile, wink, wink. And it's not massage at all. It's not what it should be. And we want to separate and add, validity to those that are professionally trained and do this as their job, and take away those that are being bought and sold as a part of the slave industry. Okay. So that's what that ordinance kind of helps do, but it is industry by industry. As a community, I look at places like closed businesses. When you see a whole bunch of parked cars outside a business that's closed, that's a red flag. When you see something that's shut down, but it has more traffic going to and from it than when it was open, that would be an issue. So a lot of it is just very close monitoring of the businesses. There are a lot of known businesses, and you ruin the good ones. I mean, there are tattoo parlors that are fantastic, do incredible ink. I don't want to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. But you also have those that are running tattoo stuff in the front and other businesses out of the back. So we always call them these backyard businesses. If somebody's living on site, if somebody's living up above, that kind of stuff, those are red flags. Are they proof that trafficking is going on? Absolutely not. Because a lot of families live up above their business.
Yes.
And you know what? That's economical. That's smart. But if you go in there, it looks like a family lives up above. You know what I mean? You see people coming and going. They look like the family coming and going out of their business. It doesn't have a high traffic zone to it, So when you have high traffic areas, different people, different cars, different license plate numbers coming and going from businesses, those are red flags. Everybody in our small towns can tell you where the drug house is. I mean, we all say, "Oh, there's a lot of traffic. I think it's a drug house." You hear that all the time. I mean, Zeering is my home. You know what I mean? I know Eastern Story County pretty well, and everybody knows everybody, right? Okay, so and then you start going, wait a second, where you have drugs, you have trafficking, because you can't move the drug from this location to this location to this location without cash to put the gas in the car, to pay the meals, to pay the food, to pay the rent, whatever. So where you have one, you have the other operating side by side. They're married. And so, pay close attention to who's coming and going, who's in that industry, what it looks like. People that travel a lot, they'll go to this community for 2 or 3 days, and then they're traveling for their job. But what's their job? Oh, well, we sell encyclopedias. Really? I've never seen any encyclopedias in any of the cars that you're buying. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's just things that don't add up, and oh, it's all mailed to you. Mm-hmm. Really? Okay. So it's just that their stories need to add up. When people's lives add up and their stories match and all of that, they're legitimate. They're Iowans, they're ours, and we guard them and protect them, give them all the support we can. It's those other ones that we go, not on our watch. You don't get to come into our community and coerce our kids, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I would tell you that we're really good at that. So traffickers don't like it when people are involved and watching and monitoring. You know what I mean? When families go to the games of their kids, please do not send your kids to school events, sporting events that you do not go and watch your child. You should be that person screaming in the bleachers. Yay! You know what I mean? That's what you need to be doing. That's your job. Because somebody else might be going and monitoring your child at a sporting event and thinking, I bet I have a buyer that would like that child. And you do not want that person to approach your child in any situation that you are not there to say, Scoot, go on, you're not in here. Mine. I've got goals and dreams for this child that involve, college, trade school, military, changing the world, curing cancer. I mean, I've got some big goals these days. No pressure on anybody's kids, but I've got all those for your kids too. And so it's just one of those things where being that vigilant parent, I want that for your kids. I want that for your community. Being that community person that's going, and when you see things that don't add up, you just pay a little bit closer attention. Being as involved as you can be is the best way to get rid of these people. They don't want to be seen.
Barb, I would add too, this is Bambi.
Yes.
Being aware, I think just having, whether people are viewing this or they have Ruth come in and talk at their church, their school, their business, whatever. I think that's a big step right there, because I was one of those people before YSS took on human trafficking and prevention of human trafficking. I should clarify that. That I always thought, I always lived by the Hollywood, like Ruth said, that this only happened where they would steal kids, take them to Chicago or take them to New York, put them in a room and drug them and stuff like that. I was not aware of how often this is probably happening in my own community. Could have been, hopefully not with my 3 children, things like that. So I think if people just will take that step, and it's uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable to think that this might be happening in your community, in your schools, in your family. But if people will take the information and think about it and be aware, I think that really goes a long way in, like Ruth said, seeing that doesn't seem quite right, or why are there people going into a business that's closed, or my kid seems to be going to school an awful lot early, but I'm not seeing results and things like that. So again, I think just bringing awareness and stop thinking the Hollywood version of human trafficking and the reality version of human trafficking.
One of the stories, and this is Eastern Story County. It was a mom. She had children in school, elementary and middle school and high school. Okay. And she was being trafficked by her landlord when her spouse was at work during the day. But the landlord came in, coerced, threatened, and what they were ultimately after is the daughters. Do you see what I'm saying? And the mother is the one being trafficked, it as a way to protect her daughters from being trafficked. Okay. And we're not allowed to talk about the open cases, but I'm saying manipulations, somebody asking you, forcing you, threatening somebody you love, and all at once you're trapped in something, and we'll have ways to get you out. YSS did get a grant, just so you know, that we will be it's a $500,000 grant that will be opening. It's incredibly cool. And it's one of 2 in Iowa, but in rural parts. So we have it in Story County, okay, for housing to help survivors get out when they come out. Housing is one of the biggest areas to help get them housing, get them services, counseling, education, get everything caught up over a period of time, and then help them get on their feet again. And so that will be opening up as soon as all the ink dries on all the contracts. That will be starting. And I think, it's because we do have a large number of people who are in this industry and they can't get out because there's no place to get to. So YSS, we're going to give them a place to get to if we can.
That sounds great. Well, so it sounds like from what you're saying that the trainings that you offered could be tailored to particular constituencies, like a set of parents in a church group, a set of school teachers that are doing business folks, whether they're large employers, small employers, Main Street folks, as we've been doing a lot with Main Street Nevada, Main Street Iowa, economic development, those kinds of things. It sounds like that you're able to specifically, as you've characterized the general things, that you could be more specific with service clubs who have their reach and their grasp in community as well. How much time would a group need to set aside to meet with you?
I like to have 2 hours, and I've got a 3-hour training that gives them time to set some things up if they want to have those conversations afterwards. But I want to have 2 hours for general awareness. And because, Barb, it's a process, it is hard to hear this. So even this morning, I have minimized things as easily as I can minimize it. But to give examples and to say, this is how it works, it's hard for our brains that we don't look at people and see this in people. It's hard for our brains to get there. So we have to start at that point. Let's deny this for a while. Now let's get it. Now let's see it. Now, what do we do? And that takes a little bit of time. And I always tell them, I'm going to trigger every one of your stress indicators. I don't like Big Macs. Every time I talk about human trafficking, a Big Mac is what I crave. And I've been doing this for, 10 years. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it's your stress triggers. So new people coming into this conversation, they're just like, whoa, what did you just do and say? Nope, it's here. And we got to address it. And so I want the 2 hours so they leave feeling empowered and knowledgeable, not scared.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm also thinking that it might be possible for some CEUs, for particular groups. I know that you're able to get foster parent CEUs, and so that might be helpful. Schools could partner with the AEA and get some staff development time, that there might be a way to do that.
And many have. I haven't gotten to do the Story County teachers, but I had teacher in service days. I've traveled all over, I don't know how many, and I train everything from the bus drivers, because they're near those homes, right straight up, the cooks, all the way through. And those teachers become heroes. You would not believe the number of kids that have gotten help because their teachers now see it.
And I think this
It's
is just such a
beautiful.
vulnerable time for people because of COVID and those economic implications. When you talk about being able to provide somebody, coercing someone to put a roof over their head, I can see how easy it would be to say, okay, I can do this for a little bit and I'll get out. That's the scary part.
Yeah. Yep.
So, well, I am not seeing any questions on feed this morning, and that's perfectly okay because it's a lot to take in, and so we are going to be posting Ruth's information, Bambi's information about Circle of Champions. But before we wrap up, Ruth, do you want to try to give us something to move forward with so that we can keep something in our heads all weekend until we get back into our places and spaces on Tuesday after the holiday and start to go, wait a minute, we really need to spend some time talking about this.
Digesting this. I would tell you that even though the industry is terrifying, okay, that terror never stops bravery. And the fastest way to become brave in this industry is education and information. Use the resources, get the education, have the conversations. You got this. And when I first started doing the training, Brittany and I, my daughter that first brought this to me and said, Mom, this is my life. We got to teach Iowa. Okay. Mm-hmm. We agreed that to everybody that we talked to, we would ask them to tell 10. Tell 10. Just pick 10 people that you love, treasure. For my definition of love is to die for. 10 people you'd die for. Get them safe first. Teach them about what it is. Teach them, learn their patterns, have the conversations, do the tough talks. And then that gives you that nest. And anybody from their nest can do anything. And you know what? If all of us love and treasure our nests the way that I think we love and treasure, we're Iowans. We got this. We're going to make this place as unfriendly to pimps as we can, because it's not going to be on my watch. And that's what parents need to say. That's what grandparents need to say. That's what youth need to hear. I love it when a youth will come to me and say, oh, my mom is just trying to control me. She's got my phone and, she's checking it. And I'm thinking, yay, that mom. You know what I mean? Go, Dad, you got this. Because when that kid gets to college, and I teach at college, okay, and they say, my parents loved me so much, they did those steps. And even when I hated it, my parents loved me that much. I'm like, yes, that's going to be a world-changing human. Get the difference? They might hate us for a while because we're going to be involved, invasive, in their face, and loving up on them, poor babies. But as soon as we set them free in the world, they're going to come back and say, I had it made. I had it made in Iowa. Those people, my whole community, my neighbors watched out for me. Yeah, we got it made. Yes. So again, baby steps, but you guys got this.
Yeah, and that's important. Youth employers, community, neighbors. And that's who we say we are in Nevada and in Eastern Story County as well. So I invite folks to be in touch with you. Bambi, thank you very much too. Consider the work of Circle of Champions, and if youth is your passion, I just invite you to follow up with this. And we invite you, as we wrap up, to continue to follow our Facebook page for future Saturday morning virtual coffee dates and topics. And thank you all for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.